My next guest, he is a personality. He is a San Antonio native. He not only has one of the best voices in Texas, but in the entire United States. I have joining me today, ring announcer Christian Schmidt. How you doing, Christian?
Wow, Jose, thank you for the introduction, man. That really makes me feel good. Thanks for having me on your show. I mean, you've had a lot of big names in the sport and combat sports, and so I'm really excited to be here. And thanks again.
Oh man, thank you for making the time, man. It's a Friday night. We're doing this thing here. We're making some time. We're both very busy, and I'm just happy to be here, man. How have you been?
Oh, I mean, I've been great. I mean, ever since we started to kind of come out of the pandemic, I've been having more opportunities come my way. I've been really working hard at it, trying to make those opportunities happen. And now it's the holiday season, so in the combat sports world, as we all know, things are calming down. So I'm just enjoying time now with my family.
Absolutely, man. Family has always been important, but it's obviously like going through something like the pandemic that really brings you closer. Plus, you're kind of forced to be there with them, right, during lockdown. So you kind of had to get used to it.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, how is so let me just start off with this. So you are a ring announcer, professional ring announcer here, and how long have you been doing this?
Well, I mean, getting started in the just kind of in general, it was 2001. When I was 22 years old, I started out in indie pro wrestling in the San Antonio area. The gentleman by the name of Ray the Voice Akins helped me get my start. And during that time, I always wanted to do pro boxing and pro MMA because I also worked as a journalist for FightNews.com and BoxingTalk.com. Um, Believe it or not, it's very difficult because there's very few, very far between opportunities. It's one of those things, one of
Yeah,
those jobs where very few people have that spot. And so finally in 2014 in Laredo, Texas, with Vito Martinez, I got to announce my first professional boxing event. And from there, it just grew. So, I mean, kind of started in 2001. My first pro boxing that I announced was 014. And then pro MMA was like 015, 016. I think it was in Corpus, Rocks Extreme Combat.
okay.
And been trying to go hard ever since and growing and learning at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. Now, professional ring announcers is very unique for me, because you think of, what a lot of people want to be doctors, right? Doctors, dentists, and then you go into like the professional sports world, you're thinking fighters, tons of organizations, right? For fighters, there's a lot of fighters out there. Same thing with football players and basketball players, but professional ring announcers, man, it's something that it's hard in the sense where, like you said, there's not a lot of opportunities, right? A lot of like the major promotions, it's either, Bruce Buffer, or Michael Buffer, and Justin Roberts, and pretty much like in the bigger leagues, you just have the same staple names. Why did you want to become a ring announcer though?
Well, kind of like, one of my all time favorite ring announcers, Lupe Contreras from Houston, who I think is only behind Michael Buffer. That's how high I rank him.
Okay.
Lupe one time said, "You really don't find the business finds you."
Okay.
And I mean, so many of our stories are like, I mean, none of us can say we went to school to be a ring announcer.
Yeah.
What's saying is a school for a ring announcer. When you're a little kid, you really don't say, when I grow up, I want to be a ring announcer.
Yeah.
It happens. And a lot of the times you'll hear a story where, it was like a ring announcer was one time in a martial arts class. And that upcoming weekend, the instructor said, "Will you announce?" And then they got good at it. Or you filled in for the radio DJ that did it and one time, and then you got good at it, and people said you were good at it. And the same thing with me. I mean, I like to say some story about, oh, when I in sixth grade, my dad took me to see wrestling, and I said I want to do that one day. If I'm just being honest,
Yeah.
it evolved. I mean, I loved pro boxing. And I mean, I became pretty much a boxing junkie in about 2000, um, because I used to work on a TV show in San Antonio called The Edge. It was aired on CTSA every week, and I got to start interviewing local talent in San Antonio. I mean, you've got like the Spurs that are king.
Of
They're
course.
hard to get to if you can, get an interview with them. But some of the local wrestlers and some of the boxers, and back then there was no mixed martial artists in San Antonio that were higher level.
Of course.
And I did start meeting some of the boxers, like Oscar Diaz, God rest his soul, and Omar Davila, and I eventually interviewed Jesse James Leja. I got to meet Tony Ayala Jr., James Coker, and then like other big names, other notable people like Luke Duva one night, and I would go to their events, and that's how I started writing, and I
Okay.
just became so hooked to the event in itself. And then, because I was already involved in indie pro wrestling, one day the guy that did not, the radio DJ for Fito Martinez and AAA Promotions in Laredo, I just had told him, I said, well, if you ever need an announcer, I do this in wrestling. And his guy couldn't be there. And fortunately, there was some weak clip some fan uploaded of an indie wrestling show I did, and I sent it to him just to show him I had some
Yeah.
experience. And I did it, and then he continued to use me, and then I had to learn so much as I went along. And it's a lot of fun because even at 43 years old and doing it for the time I have, I learn every single time I announce,
Yeah.
and I will continue to learn until the last day I ever announce. So it's a continuous process like that. But yeah, I kind of more the business kind of more so found me, I guess you could say.
No, definitely. And I want to shout you out here because, Christian, growing up, and it's funny, right? You're like, I don't want to talk about, I don't have this kind of a story where, I was a sixth grader and my dad took me somewhere. But I want to shout you out here because of the fact that in sixth grade, I mean, if you had to even think about going up in front of class and having a talk there, people would shaking their legs. I was one of them, a lot of people may not believe that looking at me now, but I was one of those. I was very shy, right? Even through high school, a lot of people are just scared. And I know adults to this day that can't. I mean, that's a weakness in that sense right there. And do it professionally and you go out there in front of crowds here and you have to talk there. Is there nerves out there? How nerve-wracking can it be? Or is it just smooth sailing for you now?
I mean, it's just smooth sailing. I've done it so many times, and I'm gonna quote Floyd Mayweather.
Okay.
One time on 24/7, he was talking about how he mentally prepares himself for his fights. A lot of people know Mayweather is 50-0 and he's never lost.
Yeah.
And I always wondered about that and how he prepared himself, but I have the same mentality. He said, I figure whatever's going to happen out there is going to happen. And basically, what he's saying is he's comfortable with whatever happens. I feel the same way. I really, really, really prepare hardcore, and I know we'll get into that later. But at the same time, if I make an error, I mean, I'm okay with it.
Okay.
Obviously, there's YouTube and Facebook and videos, and people all have
Yeah.
cameras. They do. But with the content of the whole world constantly uploading something new, I mean, it's like for something to really embarrass, something myself or somebody in the ring with me. I mean, you'd have to try to do something now. I mean, there's just so much stuff out there.
Yeah.
I tell my friends when I try to calm them down, I say I could get up there and fall flat on my face, and if I do, I'm gonna laugh about it, and I'm gonna get up as if nothing happens. And
Yeah.
haven't had that happen. Come close a couple times because there's a lot of excitement in the ring, a lot.
Absolutely.
But whatever's going to happen is going to happen. I prepare myself extensively. I stay very, very focused. You have to be very mentally focused. And I guess we'll talk about that later. But that's why, back to your question, yeah, it's just smooth sailing come time. I've done it so many times. Earlier on, I was more nervous. The only time I really get nervous is for example, last Saturday in San Antonio on the Next Level Sports channel. when it's on national television, I mean, I'm proud enough to say I do it all over the United States, and I've done pay-per-views. But being on national television, I mean, real national television, it was only my second time of doing that.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit of nerves that time, because I know there's no room for error.
No,
Because
absolutely.
I have seen some errors made by other announcers, and I know exactly what I cannot say, like announce the wrong guy.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, to be honest, no, there's really no nerves, and every time I do it now, I'm just so comfortable doing it, and I make sure that I found ways to get enough information that I need.
Absolutely. Now, do you still remember your very first time you ever did it?
Yeah, it was in a baseball stadium in Laredo, Texas. The main event was John Montes taking on Eddie Ramirez.
Okay.
And I just felt like it was long overdue. It was like finally my shot, finally my time. I was so used to doing indie wrestling shows at the time. And I knew it was a different beast. It really was.
Yeah.
Pro boxing and MMA, it's much more formal.
Okay.
The indie wrestling scene, there's no barricade, there's no state officials, there's no doctors, there's usually never any police. It's way more laid back. You're having fun. You can be eating nachos, sitting ringside, giggling and laughing. Boy, if it's pro boxing and pro MMA, I mean, you are just, you got to be really attentive. And there's, I mean, earlier I was saying I'm okay if I make an error, but at the same time, it's not accepted if you do, to the point where it's funny, or in wrestling
Yeah.
you can laugh it off. But
Yeah.
I had to be more stiff and more on my P's and Q's more than ever when I had my first ever pro boxing announcing experience.
Now, now let me shift to this. So, obviously, you've been doing this now. You've got your first shot. Was it 2014, correct?
Yeah.
Now, how has your preparation been? How's it changed since the very first time you started?
Well, that's a great question. It Okay. Now the casual fan sits at home,
Yeah.
just like I did, because I'm proud boxing fan, MMA fan, wrestling for years. And you're thinking, well, all this ring announcer does is he goes up into the middle of the ring and he reads off of a piece of paper.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, people say that.
And while that's true, there's so much more that goes into it. And when I do my shows, sometimes I am handed an information packet with more information than I want.
Okay.
Other times, it's up to me to get all that information. And more times than none, it is up to me to get that information. And I've learned on what I need to do when, obviously, I all the way down to, a lot of times I'll spend the night in the hotel the Friday before the Saturday, and I will go to the lobby. This was taught to me by my friend Matt Stolo, who's up in Dallas area. He mentioned doing it a couple of years ago. I will go into the lobby. I will have my bag. I will have my notebook. And I will just be there with my pen and paper, looking up on BoxRec or Googling or Facebook on inboxing fighters. Hey, how do you want me to introduce you tomorrow? And people are coming in and out of the lobby. And I'll try to recognize them from the weigh-ins, and I'll say, oh, hey, aren't you this guy? Okay, could you come here for a second? Okay, do you have a nickname? What's your hometown? Well, they'll say, my hometown is such and such, but I was born here, so can you say it like this? Okay, do you want me to include a gym? Is there anything else that you would like for me to say? Um, Boxing MMA is a very diverse game. It's not ruled by any nationality or race or creed or language, or that's another reason why I love it. It's so diverse. I learned so much about different cultures, but by that fact, I have to learn different pronunciations of the fighter's name. So I'll pull out my phone and say, could you please tell me how to pronounce your name? And more often than not, you'll be like, whoa, I would have said it like this, or it looks like it's spelled like this. Um, uh, uh, but that's what I like to do. That's how I like to prepare. And it's just been awesome for the learning experience because I've learned so much more about um, different countries or people from different countries or the cultures in that sense. And I'm continuing to learn.
Definitely. Now, I mean, that you bring up a great point. Pronunciation. If anyone here on the show would know this, I am the absolute worst at pronunciating names. Oh my goodness, it's such a nerve wracking thing. Has that ever happened to you though? I mean, because we're human, right? It happens, right? I mean, how do you bounce back from that? You just keep going.
Yeah, I mean, if you ever make a mistake on the microphone, I mean, for one, you really don't know until it's done.
Yeah,
Um, if you make a mistake, don't acknowledge it.
I'm telling you.
Because I know I said it was the light heavyweight title. I meant to say the cruiserweight title. Boo. Nine
Oh
times out
my
of
god.
10, nobody cares.
Yeah.
Or no, 99 times out of 100, nobody really cares, except for the person that, is maybe an official, a ringside official, or maybe, I mean, very few. And then you know to say it correctly the next time. But when you I mean, the only time you would like have to correct yourself is if you announce the wrong winner. But I stay so focused that I've never had that happen. But that would be the only time, or if you made a blunder that huge. But to answer your question, whenever you make an error up there, just continue to act like you didn't do it because ultimately the flow and the actual presentation of what you're going to say is going to look a lot more professional.
What's moving on here? What's one of the biggest challenges you think you face, Christian, in this field?
Well, dang, that's a good question too. A lot of it is perseverance because including all the places that I've been, you have no idea how often I've been rejected,
Okay.
and I'm proud to say that. Like, well, it shows my perseverance, and that's the nature of the beast. And
Absolutely.
I'll never take away, from anything like, for example, the fighters that they do. The fighters put their health on the line, but I will say this much: there's more opportunities for fighters, or trainers, or
Yep.
judges, or officials, or people of that nature. When you go to a show, boxing MMA show, there's only one announcer,
Yeah.
so that's not a lot of opportunities. Though my biggest challenge would be probably that getting the rejections, and then also sometimes it's hard to take when a promotion or a promoter has shown interest in you and let me get back to you, let me get back to you, and get really excited, and they tell you, oh, I talked to my partner and we're gonna go ahead and go with a local guy, or we'll use you the next time, or sometimes it's out of their hands, or the show got postponed because of COVID, which happened a lot recently, obviously. So
100%. It's getting scary.
that's been the most difficult time. It's just uh, to be so excited about a possible opportunity, and then you're hoping it's going to happen, and then it doesn't. So yeah, been my biggest challenge, and remains to be.
Now, was there, you talk about being on, national television. You've announced it twice. Your first time. Is there anything different that you did differently to prepare for yourself? Because some would say, obviously it's a leap, right? You're, doing a lot of shows, but something about it being like on national TV or, something real, I guess I'm not going to say not recognizable, right? But something that's known, that a lot of people will recognize. Like you said, you make mistakes, it's obviously magnified, right? If you're like on national television, was there a different sense of preparation and urgency to make sure you just got everything right for your first time?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I was just so staying on point. My first time announcing on national television. It's a funny story. Um, it was on an Indian reservation, a casino in Newtown, North Dakota, population less than 2,000 people.
Okay.
And for a guy like me, born and raised in San Antonio, and I lived in Austin and Los Angeles, lived in Laredo, to have my first time announcing on national television in a city with that little people, but to have that big of an opportunity was like, wow. And I got to announce for my favorite boxer of all time, Virgil Hill. It was his promotion, and so I just knew I had to be on point as best as I could. So I have my note cards. I keep note cards and I study them the night before, and so that's what I did, or as much as I could. And so when it came fight day, I got a good night's sleep, woke up, had my coffee, and I was ready to go.
Now, you talk about perseverance, and we're talking about your first opportunity. Was that the most memorable moment, would you say, in your professional career?
Oh, it definitely ranked up there. As of the most memorable
Yeah.
moment, it would probably have to be kind of a tie, probably 5-way tie, if that's possible. Um, it would rank up there with the time I announced for Zab Judah's promotion in the U.S. Virgin Islands. My wife and I were out there for Team Tapia in Albuquerque, New Mexico, or I'm sorry, Mescalero, New Mexico. They're from Albuquerque, New Mexico. Yeah. His wife Teresa is the one in charge of that. Announcing for Christy Martin in Daytona Beach, Florida. Announcing in front of Floyd Mayweather Jr. in Florida. I did the U.S. Boxing trials, Olympic trials, 3 years ago in Salt Lake City. Kind of all come together. National television for Team Nervousness Boxing this past Saturday. As far as choosing one, it kind of have to be hard because they all kind of come together and they're unique in their own special way.
Was there, okay, besides the being on national TV, is there a time where the nerves hit? Because I talked to Mike Bond from MMA Junkie, right? And Mike's a phenomenal journalist. I've talked to him a couple of times, and he's giving me some advice. But I always ask him. I remember asking him, like, do the nerves ever go away? Ever? At least starting out. And he told me that even as a professional, it'll always creep back up at some point, right? Even one time. Does that ever happen to you? Like with meeting anybody, announcing a specific person?
When I have not been given proper preparation,
Okay.
or something has changed at the last second. All right, somebody taps me on the shoulder and says, no, say this, or we're not going with that fight, or there's a dispute in the back where I don't know who's coming out next. I get so focused that I don't have to be nervous, but it's still sometimes there because of out of my fear of disorganization. But I mean, for the most part, it's I mean, I've done it enough times to where I really don't get nervous.
Now, as we're reaching the end here, Christian, is there a specific sport that you've announced that's harder than the other one? It's more difficult than the other one to announce?
Probably. Oh man. Well, baseball once because I just wasn't very. I'm not as big of a fan, and I just wasn't that far into the routine, and I was just working with people for the first time that I hadn't worked for. So I'd probably say it was for the Laredo Lemurs, who are now defunct, who was it was a minor league baseball team a couple of years ago. But yeah, I'd have to say that one.
Do you keep up with combat sports? I know you were busy last week and working, but do you keep up with like the UFC and the current state of boxing, everything that's going on?
Oh yeah, all the time, all the time. I
you,
love it.
did you get to see the results for last week's UFC fight?
Obviously, I was quite busy, but I did hear about how Amanda Nunes got beat.
Yeah.
And I was
It's
like,
insane.
wow, by Juliana Pena and Poirier.
Yep, Poirier lost.
I mean, I was like, wow. I'm wondering how Dana White feels about his top guys losing like that. And, I mean, it goes to show you um, how exciting and how you never know what's going to happen in MMA. I mean, you never know. Boxing, you can be a little bit more like, okay, this guy's going to beat that guy.
Yeah.
But in MMA, anything can happen, no matter how much one guy or girl is favored over the other one. But that's what makes it so exciting. And when you're a true fan, you can't miss it when your favorite fighter's going to fight.
What is your opinion on the whole Jake Paul stuff here with boxing, right? Because you're you know your stuff in boxing. You've been a fan of the sport. I mean, do you dislike what he's been doing with the sport? I mean, where do you stand here? Because everyone's got an opinion based on that, man.
You know, I try to pride myself, kind of like the way I am in politics. I can never call myself Republican or Democratic. I'm independent, and I can always view things from two different sides. And the purists in boxing that love it, and they go way back generations and remember watching it with their dad and grandpa and great grandpa or whatever,
Yeah.
they're not happy because they feel as though that the Pauls are making a mockery of it. At the end of the day, this is an entertainment business.
Absolutely.
And if it's selling tickets, then, well, more power to them. So to answer your question, I mean, I understand why some people don't like it. Do I like it? Yes. What?
I'm a fan of the guy.
Here's the thing. Are the Pauls annoying? Yeah, of course
Yeah.
they are. I mean, they're super annoying. But I will admit they're taking the sport seriously. Are they really a contender? I mean, no, but I mean, they're taking this serious. You see the way their bodies look? The promotion. I mean, those tickets don't just sell themselves. I mean, they are outselling these events. And also, there are legit fighters on the undercards that are making high dollar paydays because of
The eyes that they're attracting.
yeah, exactly. And so, I mean, another thing that's so true is, you know, I ordered the Logan Paul Floyd Mayweather exhibition this past June.
I believe it was it might have been June, March. That's the one, that's the one thing that so I like Jake. I don't like Logan Paul, to be honest with you.
Well,
I like Jake though.
I had a party at my
Yeah.
house, and for the first time ever, my nieces cared.
Yeah.
They never watched boxing, and I was like, we're sitting on, I have a big couch at my house. They were like paying attention, and you know, I didn't really know anything about the Pauls before boxing. I mean, pretty much nothing. I thought they were the same guy. But
Fair.
but they were like telling me all their history about him, and I just found out what a YouTuber was. So my point is, when you're attracting a whole nother audience, I mean, even if it is teenage girls or whatever, that's making the sport bigger than what it was before teenage girls did not watch it.
Yeah.
So, and to add on to that, I mean, I am the announcer for Celebrity Championship Boxing,
Yeah.
ran by Zab Judah, and I loved it. It was mainly kind of internet personalities that were boxing each other, and it sold. And it sold. I mean, Instagram people um, were all about it. I mean, there was trolls getting involved and saying this or that. And I mean, it's just fun. It's just entertaining. It's something you want to see. Now, I do have a message for anybody that disagrees with me. And I mean, I truly mean this. I don't want to sound mean spirited when I say this. Now, if anybody out there has a problem with myself or someone supporting this type of celebrity style boxing, my advice to you is promote the fights you do love.
Okay.
Because I have seen too much complaining and negativity about, or the Pauls or the celebrity style, or And I'm thinking, okay, here I'm giving you advice, or whoever out there advice, as to where they should channel their energy. I mean, instead of complaining about that, promote something you do love, whether
Yeah.
it's where you're saying it's real boxing. People like Crawford and Fury and Joshua and Lomachenko and Josh Taylor and Errol Spence and um, Otto Waller and people like that. I mean, if that's if you're into real, I mean, instead of bashing something, I mean, start promoting more what you like because I'm like, okay, you just for one, you're making so and so the Pauls famous. Okay,
They're thriving off that.
yeah, I mean, you're thinking you're bashing it, but you keep putting their name in your mouth. You're promoting it. So I'm just saying, anybody out there, if there's an issue with that new style that's coming about, well, then invest your money. Go buy a hat or a shirt of a big name, bout that's going to be coming up. Talk about it on your Facebook. Call a friend, call a neighbor. Talk about something you love. But as far as bashing something that you hate, thinking that you're going to make it less attractive, well, you're doing just the opposite. So, and I'm all about positivity in the sport because there is way, 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 way too much negativity.
100%
And,
agree.
I mean, it's just too much, disrespect towards the fighters and the people. All too often the know-it-alls think that, oh, Canelo's been catered or cherry picker, or he hasn't, or Tyson Fury's too big, or Terrence Crawford never fought anybody, or I mean, the guys that are at the top of the level, those know-it-alls, I see coming on, and they're bashing it, and we need more positivity. I try never to say anything negative about anybody who's a boxer, no matter if you're 100 no or 0 and 100, or if you're a celebrity boxer, or if you're affiliated somehow. As long as you're doing something with a positive message, um, I support it.
Oh, absolutely. I think there's a lot of hate out there, but people don't understand that. Why pay attention to it? If it's not your cup of tea, you don't have to watch it. It's not like Jake Paul is coming at your doorstep and forcing it in your face.
Exactly.
In my
Exactly.
opinion, I think that like celebrity boxing and all these different avenues, people are paying for it, right? So there's a certain demand for it, right? And the thing is that I think people fail to understand that not everyone likes the same thing. I don't like seafood. There's a lot of people that like seafood. Everyone likes different things. So I 100% agree with you, Christian. Is there anything else, as we're closing out the show here, that you'd like to tell the audience listening?
Just thank you, Jose, of Critical Condition, for having me. It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much. Anybody else that has any other questions, just feel free to find me on Facebook at Christian Schmidt. If you're looking to book me for an event, I'd love to talk to you. If you're just a fan and you just want to talk about the sport, I'd love that too. I can talk about it all day, and I would love to do it again.
Awesome. Christian Schmidt, you've been an awesome guest. Thank you so much for your time. And to everyone out there listening, thank you all for your time. I'll catch you later, guys. Goodbye.